and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Stephen White, a member of CMC's Board of Trustees, and I'm also one of the vice presidents at COSI. It's great to see everyone here today on this beautiful afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. So today's forum is called Columbus City Schools, and it's sponsored by the Robert Weierle Company, the United Way of Central Ohio, the Dispatch Media Group, and WCBE 90.5, who are all represented here today by many of friends and associates. Let's give a warm thank you to all those sponsors here today. Thank you so much for your support. So, as we consider the important attributes of our community, at the top of the list must be education. There is no greater good than the enrichment of our children with the knowledge and the tools needed to provide them with a pathway to citizenship and productive, meaningful lives. Ladies and gentlemen, this road will not be easy. The barriers and the obstacles are many, but the care and the belief that it can be done gives us hope for better outcomes. Leading the charge for Columbus City Schools is our new superintendent. She's leading us, and we're happy to have her in our community. Won't you please give her a warm welcome, Columbus City Schools and Superintendent Talisa Dixon. And our host here today is the editor of the Columbus Dispatch, Alan Miller. Let's give him a warm round of applause as well. And with that, Alan, the stage is yours.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Clearly, we know who has the bigger fan club here. But before we get started, I'm curious, how many of you are graduates of the Columbus school system?
Oh, wow.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Success. That's great. How many employed by the Columbus schools? Very good. All right, thank you. Again, thank you all for being here. So I heard a rumor that you have no TV in your house. Is that true? And if so, could you tell us a little bit about that situation?
Oh, wow, they're going to know my secret. No, I don't have a television or radio. And the reason why is when I decided to take on this wonderful opportunity, I wanted to be laser focused on the work and not the noise. And I was afraid that there would be noise about what was happening and what was not happening. And I didn't want that to block my purpose of being here and the work that I knew I had to do. So I decided to, if I want to watch television, I'll watch television somewhere else on the weekends.
At your dad's place.
Yeah, my dad's place in Mississippi. But while I'm here during the week, I don't have a television.
I heard you work a lot too.
Doug, you know what? This job requires my full attention. And so I'm usually at work between 7:30, sometimes 8, but I'm there to about 7:30, sometimes 8 at night. But it's okay. I signed up for this. I knew the work was going to be challenging at times, but I knew I had to get a great team to champion the work behind me. And I have an awesome team and a board that supports the work, and that makes it easier.
Very good. I want to read you a headline and then a brief excerpt from a Dispatch story about you from last September. The headline is, "From Sub to Superintendent, Talisa Dixon ready to take on Columbus schools." And it says that you were working as a long-term substitute teacher in Akron, and you were a little frustrated that you hadn't secured a full-time job there. So you sent a letter asking the superintendent for a meeting to talk about that. And the response, in essence, was, don't call us, we'll call you. And it seems that it all worked out, right? Because 23 years later, here you are, a superintendent of the largest district in Ohio. So you came here from Cleveland Heights, you'd been a superintendent, and held a number of other administrative jobs in other districts, including as an assistant principal at the now closed Brookhaven High School here in Columbus. And you were in charge of discipline, the story says. And so here's directly from the story. It says, she didn't want students to know when she was not in the building, turning to a primitive form of electronic countermeasures, recording school announcements in her voice to be played in her absence. So this was from a former social studies teacher who now works for the teachers union. And so she would leave her office door open with the lights on during the day when she wasn't present, and the pre-recorded morning and afternoon announcements were airing, making it seem as though she was there watching even when she wasn't. So nobody would see her, but they could hear her voice. It was kind of like a Big Brother thing, this source of ours said. She's very focused on order and discipline. So she became the head principal in the fall of 2008, and also was at Columbus Alternative High School, where a former student remembers the infamous Dixon heels, the sound of her footsteps in the hallway, patrolling the hallway, as he put it. You would hear those heels coming down the hall, and people would move to get into the room where they were supposed to be. She was everywhere, he said. So that's a long wind up to this question. Who is hearing those Dixon heels now, and what message are you sending?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Wow. Well, you know what? I hope everyone, especially at central office, I have an open door policy, first of all. I don't believe, I am I'm the people's superintendent. So you can come, they hear me walking, now I know they hear me walking in the office in the morning, but my door is always open. So I hope they understand that I believe I can go to any place in any district building, and so can they. They can come to the board, and if they want to see the superintendent, they can see the superintendent. If they want to meet with me like I wanted to meet with the superintendent in Akron, they have that opportunity to. And I think that's my leadership style that's a little different. No, I didn't want people to know I was out of the building, because students expect for you to be there. And they want to know that you're accessible, and if you being there would change their behavior, a bad behavior to a positive behavior, then that's okay. But I did tell Phil Hayes and John Coniglio, who are now the president and vice president of the teachers union, I said, I think they embellished just a little bit. But it was great, because I tell them now the Brookhaven team is back together again, because they were teachers when I was the principal at Brookhaven, and now the three of us have leadership positions in the organization. So I hope that people know. I know my team knows. I tell my team all the time, there are 50,000 kids that are depending on us to make good decisions. And that is a non-negotiable. So whether it's every Monday, I'm visiting buildings, every Monday I am in a building. I want people to see me, have access to me, and to know that what we're doing is to better the lives for our students and our families, and we're going to have to do it together.
Very good. Speaking of this teamwork, you arrived here just in time for a new contract or negotiations with teachers.
Yeah, great timing. Right?
Yes, and and some of us were wondering how that was going to go, because there were some demonstrations around town like we hadn't seen before, and it appeared that this could become quite a challenge. And knowing what just happened in Chicago, where teachers struck and they were out for a couple of weeks, there was some concern that something could go sideways here. So I'm curious if you could tell us how you navigated that whole process.
Well, first I said to our team and to our board, teachers and principals are the two most important people in the organization, hands down. Our principals are the ones that are setting the culture and climate. Our teachers are the ones that are doing the work, and we have to make sure that we're supporting our teachers. I was a former teacher, my parents were former teachers, my grandmother was a former teacher, so teachers are important in the lives of all of our students, and we had to make sure that we rewarded them for their hard work and make sure that their compensation was fair. I believe the package is fair. It says to our teachers union that your work is critical to the work that we must do for all of our students. But to add to that, we need to make sure that we have some additional supports. So it's not like getting the teachers and locking them up in the classroom with the kids and saying, hey, save them. It's what are the additional supports that you need from central office? And that's why we have put in place a central office as a support hub for our buildings. So working with Phil and John too, you know, they knew me, but they wanted what was best for the teachers, and so did I and the board. So yes, there were some heated moments, but everyone bargained in good faith. And in the end, I think what we have is fair.
Good.
Yeah.
Next, Dr. Dixon was at the Dispatch recently for an editorial board where we heard some of the background on what she's been working on for the past few months. And one of the things we heard about was an audit of the district, something that hasn't been done for quite a while, and also a move away from site-based management toward something else that I would ask you to describe both of those.
Yes, okay. So we decided I wanted to focus on 4 things this year, and that's academic performance. And with academic performance, I also wanted to change the structure. So I immediately went to a regional focus and hired 6 outstanding leaders to be area superintendents. So each region rather, has between 7,000 and 9,000 students. And it was a way to align the support, not to have 6 mini districts, but to make sure that we are able to align the support needed by regions. And also was able to get a lot of great people from some other districts to lead this work, specifically in DC. DC Schools District has done some wonderful things with providing supports for schools, so I was able to get some of that talent and bring it to our district and to be able to build a strategy around supporting our schools. Also with that is, the second part of that question, I'm talking so fast, the audit, yes, so the curriculum audit. So, you know, when I arrived in this district, and there was a wonderful article done by the Columbus Monthly, right? So I was looking at the article, and I turned to the page, and there was this lady standing on top of the school building. And she was holding something up, and I kept saying, what is that they have that she's holding? And I blew the picture up, and it was an F, and it was me.
Oh. I
was like, oh my gosh. So we're just like, okay, just here's me, I'm standing on the building, it was an F on my back, and I'm thinking, what does that mean, right? So I knew that when I got here, you know, I arrived, we had an F on a report card, but I knew that wasn't the narrative that we were going to stay at. So I knew I had to make some tough decisions and say, what are we teaching our students? What is the curriculum? Who's making those decisions? Do we have the right curriculum for each student at each grade level? And how do we know if we do? So I partnered with Phi Delta Kappa, who did a curriculum audit in the district in 1996. And they also did their first curriculum audit in Columbus, I think in 1970. So they're starting, they've already started, but they will be in the district a couple weeks in December. And they're going to visit about 50 or more schools throughout the district. And they're looking for curriculum alignment, our teaching practices, equity, all of those things that we will learn if we are doing those things well, and if we're not. And then we will have answers from experts, and we will take that information and build upon it.
Okay.
So it's going to be tough, but we're ready for it. You know, I didn't come here to fail. We're going to be a top district, and we have to make some tough decisions, and we have to have some hard facts from organizations who can give us reputable information.
This is something we'll all see, right?
You will all see it.
Okay.
Yes, you all see it. As we stated, we're going to share it. It's open. It will be shared at a board meeting. And so we know it will be public. And we're going to have our response of how we're going to approach what we've learned.
I wonder if you could, I think both of these things fit together in the next question, and that is, you mentioned curriculum alignment, and in this move away from site-based to the regions, developing a way that students, as we know they do, move from one school to the next at times because of economic conditions or home situations, whatever, that there is a migration that goes on around the district. And I think you indicated that you found that when they move from one school to the next, they don't always find that they can just pick up where they left off.
Right. And that was thank you. That was one of the things that was eye-opening. So my first 100 days in the district, I was just listening and learning, just trying to figure out what was different, what has happened since the 9 years prior, because I was in the district 9 years ago, for 9 years. And so what I learned is that, we had students who were, a lot of transit students, but they were not accessing the same curriculum. So it's not a child's fault that they may have to move, but they shouldn't have to come to the school and have new textbooks, new curriculum to learn. They shouldn't have to start all over again. So what could we do to put pause on that? And so site-based management, while it is a great strategy, if we cannot see that that is working well in all 109 of our buildings, then it's not the right strategy for us. And it's not an indictment on what principals have tried to do or the former administration what they was trying to do. But I think we have to see this holistic and say, we have 109 buildings, we have 50,000 students. Do we have the right programs? Do we have the right supports? And if we don't, what are we going to stop doing so that we can get the right strategies and the right approaches? So I asked all my team members the first couple of weeks, where's your stop-do list? Where's your stop-do list? And they was like, what are you talking about? What are you going to stop doing so that we can focus on the things that are right? And it was so hard for them to bring those lists, because I think what people heard was, she's going to take something away from me, right? Well, yeah, we need to take something away, but because I want you to spend your time and energy on the things that's going to give us the maximum results for our students and our families.
So I think a lot of us, I'll speak for myself, in our newsroom we struggle with that mightily. What do you give up? Do you have any thoughts about that yet?
Yeah, what do you give up?
Yeah, for you in the school district.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think for us, we may want to give up some of the programs. So we have, again, 50,000 students, and what if we have a program that only has 400 students, right? And it has 400 students and we're spending $100,000, for example. Is that the right program to continue to invest in, or do we invest in a program that can service 2,000 kids and may cost, we can add a little more money to it to maximize that. So some of that. And then the biggest piece is aligning our partnerships. So, we have so many wonderful partners that are working with us, but what I saw is that, we have 50,000 kids, but our partners may be touching 10,000, right? So I'm thinking, well, who's touching my other 40,000 babies? So how can we align our partnerships that there is
what are partners?
Our partners. So our partners, like we have some of them here. We have City Year. We have I Know I Can. We have Directions in Youth. We have so many partners, organizations who are invested in our students and our families in the community. United Way. We have so many great partners. So how can we maximize what they're doing to impact more kids and more families, and how do we in turn, as a school organization, understand the benefits that we're getting from that, right? So we want to make sure that if a partner is working with reading strategies, right, we should be able to see the same results that they're seeing, And they should not be doing different work than what the school district is doing. So maybe part of our strategy is sharing the curriculum. So they shouldn't have to buy curriculum for this reading program. The district has the curriculum. How do we share that curriculum? Because they're bringing extra people and other expertise to help in our buildings, and we want to be able to share what we have with those partners. So I created a position, a chief of engagement, and that person, she is working with our partners and making sure that their work is aligned to the outcomes that we need to see, and of course the outcomes that they have. So excited about that.
Very good.
Yes.
So, and that's a good segue. The next question is about the visioning process that you're planning, and
Yes.
and maybe you could give us a scoop here.
A little scoop.
I
Yeah, just a
understand that
little
it's ready to begin,
Yes.
and you could also maybe talk about Battelle for Kids and how that fits
Yes.
into this process.
Great, thank you. So I wanted to, the district had a strategic plan that was in draft form when I arrived. And so I met with the board after listening. Again, I was listening to various stakeholders. And I met with the board and I said, I'm not sure that the draft strategic plan is the right work right now. And would you allow me to reset and start a new process? And they said, yes, but you have to have some priorities for this 1 year so we can hold you accountable for these priorities. I said, okay. So my 4 priorities was, of course, academic performance, because we have to show mastery. Our students have to perform. The second was school climate and safety. And we deployed 31 additional safety and security people to our buildings this year, because kids and families, they want to know if their kids are safe. Safety comes before learning, so we did that. And we wanted to make sure we still had a focus on trauma-informed practices, PBIS, and restorative practices. And our third strategy was talent development. We need to make sure that we have a pipeline of expertise to come. So I've partnered with Ohio State, and we're going to co-design the teacher pipeline program. We want, if they're the #1 college, they should be coming directly to our students, but we have to co-design what that experience looks like. And so those were, and then the fourth strategy was engagement. So again, I was meeting with parents, and they could say, you're not listening to us. The district never listens to us. You're not communicating with us. And I said, people believe that communication is engagement, and it's not. So that engagement strategy was intentional. So we could really have a strategy that we're listening intently to our parents and our partners, while at the same time we're strengthening our communications and being more transparent. Check us out on social media. We have a lot of things that are happening. We want to be able to let the community know that there are great things that are happening in Columbus City Schools, despite what they may read and despite the report card results of the F and now the D, that we're on our way. And we're going to be transparent and open to the community about our results. And I think they can help us. You as the community can help us get better and can hold us accountable.
So could you tell us more about that? What will happen next?
So what will happen next? So Battelle for Kids. So thank you. That was a good way to get me back on track, right? So our visioning exercise, it was, Talisa, how do we figure out what's best for kids and what type of programs do we want? So we looked at different organizations who can help us guide that work. And we said, we don't have to go far. You have Battelle for Kids is right here in Columbus, and they have this strategy called Portrait of a Graduate. And so they're meeting with community stakeholders, and they're deciding what is it that we want for our Columbus City Schools students? What are those experiences that we want? And then how do we shape our school organization to meet those experiences for our kids? So that means our schools may need to look different, our approach to teaching and our programs will look different, but we hear and we learn that information from our students and our families. So that process is going to start next month. And it's going to be a 5-month process. And at the end of that 5 months, we're going to have this portrait, and we're going to begin aligning and reshaping our programs around that.
Good. So can you tell us what will happen in those 5 months?
So the 5 months we're going to have, we have some key groups that are design team members. We're going to have 5 community events in different parts of Columbus, where we're inviting our community stakeholders to come and participate in the activity. We have some community leaders who have participated in an Innovation and Reform Committee for several years. Those committee members will be facilitating and kind of being a face of those community members. But it is a strategy that we get people in the room, we get their ideas and their thoughts about what's best for Columbus kids and what it looks like for Columbus. And it may look totally different from other districts that I've been to or from our neighboring districts, but it's not what we believe is best, that we are purposeful in getting that information from our stakeholders.
And will that include parents, community members,
business leaders? You all will be invited. You all get invitations to come. Because we have some business leaders said, oh, we need, more, Talisa, what are you going to do to make sure that we have people that are ready to work in Columbus? And I say, well, hey, how do we know that that's what that's best for our kids? We may believe that we want these people in these fields, but do our kids want it? And if they do, and the answer is yes, then do we have the current school structure to facilitate that? And if not, then what do we have to do different? So, K-12 organizations kind of take us a little longer to change, but I think when we do it together and it is clear what we want for our students, then it kind of pushes us along to make those needed changes.
So that's a big chore, right? Or
yes.
A big lift. How do you turn that ship in a new direction?
Yeah.
You're talking about what, 9,000 employees?
Yes.
50,000 students, but really for true change, the initiatives you're talking about, you need somebody out there really pushing the initiative.
Right.
So who is that, and how does that happen?
Well, I think it's me.
But you can't do that alone, right?
I can't do that alone, right?
Who
So
do you...
I think it, for me, I share to my board all the time that, leadership starts with us, right? And it starts with me and the board working together and making sure that the things that we want for our students, that they're going to support me in making sure that those things happen, right? But I have to be clear about what those things are and be able to bring evidence back to the board as well. So it's not like Talisa kind of goes out and kind of carte blanche does whatever she wants to. I am held by my 7 bosses. And then I take, with their support, I take it to my cabinet team, and then our cabinet teams are the ones that champion the work. So we're the ones that are out there along with those area superintendents who are saying, this is the right work, and we're going to do it and do it together, and they're going to be non-negotiables. The 4 priorities is everyone's priority in the district. And if you're not willing to do this work, then this may not be the organization for you. And it's okay, but this is the work and this is a priority, and we have to move forward. Again, we have 50,000 kids that are, are relying on us to get this right. And so we have to get it right. We will.
Very good. In just a couple of minutes, we're going to take questions from the audience. And some of maybe you saw this on the registration for CMC, that you're able to submit questions via that form that you sign up for the luncheon. So I have one from that list that I'd like to toss your direction, and that is from someone who I believe feels that maybe the bureaucracy of the school district is bigger than it needs to be, and I'm wondering how you feel about that. And the key point of this question is there a way to, or will you focus more of the overall school funding toward children as opposed to the bureaucracy?
Great question. you never get enough money, I believe, to support the needs of all our students, right? So you have to prioritize and partner with other organizations that could help. So, for example, and I go back to our priority number 2, culture and climate, and making sure our students have the support with social and emotional learning support. That's not necessarily the K-12 expertise, but there are partners who are, have great strategies in trauma-informed practices and restorative practices. And those organizations can come and partner with us to make sure that we have those programs available for our kids. So it's not that we need $1 million more to hire those people necessarily, but how can we think differently about partnering with organizations to provide those services for our students? So yes, additional funding would be nice. So I'm not saying we don't want it, that would be nice, but I think we have to prioritize what we need and be willing to say that some things we can no longer do. Go back to that stop-do list. What are some things that we no longer can do, but a great partner may be willing to say, you know what, Talisa, we'll take that on. So I think that's part of it, it is what it is. Funding is what it is. We're working on to find different funding models for the entire state. But in the meantime, we are working on what are our priorities and how can we maximize the funding, the dollars that we do have to make sure that is directly impacting our students and we can show the community that it is. I think that piece of that transparency is important.
Okay, very good. We're ready to move to questions from the audience, right? So if you want to, if you have a question, you want to make your way to the microphone back here, you're welcome to do that. And while that's happening, here's another question for you from the submitted questions. And this is always an interesting topic, I'm sure, for both you and the school board, about school buildings. As the population of students has declined, there's been one study after another about which schools should remain open, which should close, and so the question is, should more schools have been closed, especially at the high school level?
Do I have to answer that one?
I know it's a touchy one, but it's
it's always
a perennial favorite.
Right. It's always touchy when you're talking about closing schools. But again, we know that our district is not, we don't have the student size that we've had many years ago. But that's why this process with Battelle is so important. So we can decide what type of schools and programs that are best for our kids and what do they want. And we let those decisions be driven by program. And not because we just have a building that's a beloved building. If it's not the program that our students need, then it's not, can't stay there. So we have to make those tough decisions. So yes, we know we have 109 buildings and we have 50,000 kids. So when people do the math, they say, you have too many buildings. But I want to make sure that those decisions are program driven. And then once we decide that, then we can go back and revisit, okay, what are you going to do with some of these buildings that may have low student capacity? Because people know that they are. People who've been visiting our buildings know that in some of our high schools, our enrollment is low. In our elementary schools, a lot of them are overcrowded. So there are some additional conversations, future conversations that need to happen as we make a decision on our facilities.
Very good. Okay, question, if you would, when you're asking questions, ask a question. Editorializing is great for letters to the editor, and we welcome them every day. But for this, we want questions, so please.
Thank you. My name's Tracy Nahed. I'm a Children's Defenseman of Ohio, and welcome to Columbus. So happy you're here. My question mainly deals with kindergarten readiness. And I'd like to learn a little bit more about what the school district is doing to make sure that, we're reaching down, before children are in kindergarten, to making sure that they're ready for it. And you spoke about partnerships, and I know the district's doing a lot of good things. If you can talk a little bit about that.
Thank you, Tracy. Great question. We were just speaking yesterday in our cabinet meeting about our summer program, and do we have are we planning summer programs for our kindergartners? And we are, we're talking about a jump into kindergarten, just to get those students prepared. We know that it starts in pre-K. And we're talking about how can we expand our pre-K programs, and that is a conversation. We know that funding will be a part of that discussion for our pre-K programs. So we're going to strengthen those programs, have more pre-K programs, and expand the curriculum for our kindergarten classes. Making sure, again, go back to the alignment and what programs do all of our kindergartners have in all of our schools, and are they having the same curriculum and access to the same curriculum? So our kindergartners are so important, and when you go to those classes, they are just, woo, when they go, they always think I'm a giant because I'm so tall, they say, oh my gosh, you're so tall. But they're sponges. And they're the kids that I think when we make that great impression and we get them to love learning and to be excited about learning and excited about their teachers, those are our future doctors and lawyers and nurses, all of our students. So investing more, there's a commitment to invest more in our early learners so that they are prepared when they get to middle school and high school. Thank you. Great question.
Yes, sir.
I'm Bill Wason. I came to Columbus in 1969 to work on urban education. And I'm kind of impressed listening to you. You came from Akron. You may have known Jim King, who taught a lot of people up there. My question is going to sound like a gotcha question, but I don't mean it to be. When I studied large American metropolitan school systems, every one had a handful of really top-notch teachers and principals. But the best way to identify them was the board was trying to fire them, and the other principals were all mad at them. Now, you're moving toward a more centralized decision system than a site-based one, but is anything being done? And I'm not asking this to put you on a real spot, but is anything being done to protect those genuine educators who are innovative, who are creating programs, who work well with their community? Yeah. And above all, by the way, they made the historically neglected children feel that they belonged in the school. So
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great question, and I did not know that person in Akron. I'm actually from Oxford, Mississippi, but I worked in Akron for a few years, so I didn't know Mr. King.
Well, something good comes out of Mississippi.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes. Thank you. So, thank you. So, to your question, I've stated before, I think our principals are key to this work. And we wanted to make sure that our principals have the support that they needed. We've recently, we've partnered with the Wallace Foundation. And the Wallace Foundation partnership speaks to a principal pipeline. How can we make sure that we have the right leaders in our buildings, those creative, innovative leaders that you spoke of, and more of them? Because this is a competitive field. I mean, people can choose to go whatever district they want to. We want those innovative and those leaders to come to Columbus City Schools. So are they protected? Yes. I spent the majority of my career as a building leader. My favorite job was that of a high school principal. So they are the ones that I believe that we love our teachers. We make sure our teachers have their supports. But our building principals must be given the tools to be creative, to be innovative. And I hope that's what we have in Columbus. That's what I experienced when I was a principal in Columbus. And I want to make sure that we continue that. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Bill Lafayette. I own Regionomics, and a good chunk of my practice is in workforce development. And I talk to company leaders and CEOs all the time, and they tell me that they're seeing a real lack of workplace skills in folks coming into the workforce. Things like appropriate communication, appropriate interactions with supervisors and peers and customers, and an understanding that if they fall down on the job, it's the team that suffers. And so I'm just wondering what the school district is doing to build that kind of skill set.
Right, thank you. Great question. I know internships and job shadowing, I think, are so important, right? Many of those skills we learned on the job, at the workplace. Like, we know kids come to school and we're teaching them their academics, we're giving them the opportunity to work in groups, and they have some public speaking classes, they do presentations, and there's some ways throughout various classes to demonstrate or to work on those skills. But I think the best place for students to work on skills to get ready for the work is in a workplace. And if we could provide that platform for more students to work in the office, to work wherever. I mean, when I was a high school student, I worked at our newspaper office, right? So it was funny, yeah. But I was in the back putting the ads in the newspaper. Me and my friends, we did that for a while. You know, the ads. We did that, and we had to meet with those mad people who didn't get their paper on time. But you learned those skills while working. My next job was at McDonald's. I think every kid should work at McDonald's, because at McDonald's you meet kids from all walks of life, right? All people. But businesses, I think, and organizations have to be open, or more open, to allowing our kids to come, and being open to saying, okay, Talisa, you need to sit up straight. Okay, Talisa, when that person comes to the door, you need to greet that person with a smile. Hey, you can't wear your hat, Talisa. You got to pull your hat off, And I think it's okay. I mean, I don't think that the K-12 space should be totally responsible for that piece. I think there's a partnership, and we say, you know what, I'm going to send you my very best, and I'm going to send you 1,000 students who are ready to go into the world of work, but they need some additional skills that I think shadowing with a person from that organization can help fill that gap. Does that make sense? Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Dixon.
Hi.
Jillian Bradshaw. I'm with Porter Wright Morrison Arthur. Prior to joining the firm, I was actually general counsel to the Dayton Public School District. Oh. I know Urban Ed is very happy to have you. Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about your efforts geared toward parent engagement?
All right, thank you. So that position that I spoke of earlier, that chief of engagement, Alicia Gillison, who's here, if you stand up, Alicia. Alicia is Alicia is the face and the champion of that work. And again, that was one of the things that families were saying, that we were not listening, we were not engaging them. And what her team has started, they've had engagement sessions. I forgot what the technical name they're calling those. The listening tours. And so they're going out throughout the community, just listening to families, listening to the concerns. She's also working with the parent ambassadors. Again, we want to make sure that we're being responsive to our parents, listening to their needs, and not just kind of, and not the building building being the only place that happens, right? So because we've learned so many things from our families that we've been able to take and expand that through all of our, throughout the entire organization. So we are partnering with some new things. We're partnering with Joyce Epstein with the Epstein model. She is actually going to be here in the district working with our organization on strengthening our parent engagement strategy. So we're excited about that. So you may want to see Alicia if you want to kind of work with that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Moody. I have a two-part question. One is about perception, others is confidence. Because one of the things that happens with the Columbus, with the grades, obviously, you know, the article with the F and then obviously progression to the D. It's a trend. You're going in the right direction. I have confidence that you'll get there. But how do you address the perception that the Columbus City schools in general are just inferior to the other schools in the surrounding areas? How do you address that particular thing? And then the other part of that is, for the students who are in Columbus public schools, who are dealing with the weight of being hurt, always being told that their school isn't as good as whatnot, how do you address the confidence of those students don't think that they are inferior just because they can't afford to go and move to a richer district? So it's a two-part question, if you will.
Wow, great question. I think one is a question of equity, right? How do we make sure that regardless of what school our students go to, that they have a good quality education? That should be available for any student, whatever program you go. And we have to make sure that those cultures and that building is set up for that, right? I knew when I came back to Columbus, and I said to myself, okay, self, you know, you're leaving a district where, you know, you're comfortable, you just got a new 5-year contract. Do you want to do this work, right? I knew the perception, I knew all of those things, but yet I came, right? Because sometimes there's a greater work to do, and someone has to say, that is the work that I believe that I can champion, despite what the narrative is. And if I can help galvanize this community, and the community understand this can't be Talisa's work alone, you know, that we have to champion this work together. We have to align our resources, our human capacity, our knowledge. All of those things have to be bowed together, just like all these people, 270 people in this room. We are Columbus City Schools. We are the ones that have to champion this work, and whatever the perception is, put that in the back of our mind, just like I don't have a television, right? So I don't have to listen to the noise. But making sure that every student that get up, that they go to a Columbus City Schools, that they're having a good experience every single day. And the ones who are not, then we remove that barrier of whatever the reason they're not having that good experience, right? Because our parents are sending them the best, you know, and they're hoping that our schools have the best programs and are preparing our students, and we as Columbus City Schools have to make sure and ensure that it's happening. And if it's not, then you have to hold us accountable for that.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
Thank you.
Thank you, welcome.
Hi, Jim Ebright, former board member. Bill Wason knows me, and he's probably the only one old enough to remember me on the board. Your job and the board's job is to allocate resource in producing the best possible educational outcome. All research in education shows that early childhood education has a much better payback than money spent just before graduation.
Right, right.
One of the things that we proposed 30-some years ago and didn't get it done was diverting the extra money that we spend on high school students. We spend a lot more money per student on high school students than we do elementary school students, and reversing that. The educational outcome in the long run will be appreciably better. Is there any chance of something like that happening during your regime?
Wow. Tough question, right? I think we're exploring all opportunities. And the way that we decide how we move forward, we do it after investigating all and exploring all those opportunities. We are now providing support, regional support to our schools. We know there are some additional positions that we may need, but I think it goes back to what are those things that we're going to invest in, those things that we're going to stop doing, so that every child pre-K through 12 has what he or she needs every day in order to get the best education outcomes that we know that he or she can achieve. So yes, that is a possibility as we strategize on next steps, but it is a different way of looking how we are funding. But I think, it's been 8 months now, and in these 8 months, we are still exploring various options from funding to curriculum to other extracurricular activities and experiences for our students.
Well, thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Dixon. It's
Thank
been great
you.
talking with you today.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Well, I hope you found today's forum informative. I know I have, and whether that's around how we can work together with the district to focus on engagement and the leadership that's happening there, or around safe climate for schools, or student performance, right? It's all about, what I heard today is about delivering a district that supports every student, so that way they can be successful. And I tell you what, if you had not heard those Dr. Dixon footsteps before, you most certainly now hear them coming, because they're here to stay, and we're excited to have your leadership, Dr. Dixon, in our community. So let's thank our sponsors one last time: the Robert Weiler Company, the United Way of Central Ohio, Dispatch Media Group, and 90.5 WCBE. A round of applause for our sponsors. Thank you so much. And let's also thank our speakers, Dr. Dixon and Alan Miller. Thank you so much for a great conversation. And finally, a special thanks to all of you here today. We look forward to seeing you at the next CMC Forum. Thank you.